Hi everybody, welcome to Duality Productions. In this episode, we're going to tackle some of the stigma and facts regarding drug addiction, and we're going to bring to light some of the issues that are seldom brought to the public eye, due to multiple factors including a system that seems to value profit over people. Currently, mainstream science, the rehabilitation industry, and Western society as a majority view addiction as a purely neurobiological condition related to the production and stimulation of dopamine in our brains, as well as certain receptors such as the opioid receptor, which react to narcotic painkillers such as Vicodin, Percocet, Oxycontin, and street drugs such as heroin. However, there is evidence and data continuously piling up that addiction is not all that we think it is, and environmental stressors play a key role in keeping people hooked on substances and even activities such as gambling and excessive cell phone use. It is important to remember that there are multiple forms of mild addiction that afflict our lives daily. A perfect example of this would be coffee drinkers. There are those of us who drink multiple cups of coffee a day and proudly proclaim that we wouldn't be able to live without it. For high-frequency cell phone users, that addiction stems from the production of dopamine in your brain. Every time you receive a text, receive a new like on social media, or find the instant gratification of a direct response from one of your friends, any of these things can trigger a small release of dopamine that will make you feel good every time it happens. This can put people in a loop of constantly checking their phones for social media updates and texts, even in mid-conversation. More obvious forms of addiction involve cigarettes, alcohol, narcotic painkillers, heroin, methamphetamines, and anti-anxiety medications. All of these correlate to some sort of direct trigger that stimulates your brain to produce chemicals and has the end result of making you feel good. The downside are the side effects that often come with severe addiction and the behavior that these side effects can cause. These side effects range from severe flu-like symptoms from opiate withdrawals, or in the worst case scenario, seizures and even fatalities related to alcohol withdrawals. There can also be long-term effects such as gum disease from cigarettes and losing your teeth from prolonged smoking of crystal meth. Although these examples highlight side effects from severe addiction problems, there are complications from mild addictions too, such as weight gain from food addiction. There are also highly functioning addicts out there who have all the symptoms of addiction, yet manage to work full-time, have a career, family, and etc. This complicates our idea of addiction because when most of us see an addict, we see an immoral character who probably lives on the streets or something of that sort, unable to function in society. This is one of the biggest stigmas regarding drug addiction, and there is evidence compiling that proves that this stigma is not only wrong but irresponsible. One of the best examples that supports the idea that Western society needs to see a change in the way we view and regulate drug use is the current drug policy in Switzerland. At one point, the country of Switzerland had an opioid epidemic that rivaled the current opioid epidemic in the US. The Swiss government tried multiple laws and policies in order to prevent its citizens from destroying their lives due to severe drug addiction, specifically opiate addicts. All of these laws and policies mirrored the laws and policies of the US, which shed a bad light on drug addicts, basically shaming them, creating laws that focus on punishing them in order to scare them away from using drugs instead of creating programs and finding alternative solutions that focus on helping them. Eventually, after multiple failed attempts at controlling and stigmatizing drug use on its citizens, the Swiss government decided to take the complete opposite approach and focus on helping and destigmatizing heroin use by creating a policy that requires clinics where opiate addicts can walk in and receive medical-grade heroin that can be covered by insurance or government funding, and they can be viewed as patients instead of criminals. Once in the clinic, the patients are allowed to receive any dose of heroin they want and are bombarded with therapy and various forms of help in order to find the root cause of why they are using, and help get them back out into society, with the goal of eliminating the opiate addiction that they came in to treat in the first place. Now, I know, this sounds absolutely insane and counterintuitive, but guess what? It actually worked. Since the program started around 1991, the overall death rate of opiate overdose in Switzerland has dropped by over 50%, with an astonishing decrease in heroin use among the Swiss people down to almost 0%, and has cut the rate of HIV and AIDS by 46%, with homelessness down by 30%, along with a massive drop in drug-related and violent crimes. This program has also saved the Swiss government a large amount of money, where one person treated in the outpatient clinic costs around $1,750 versus $20,000 for incarceration, or $21,500 for not receiving any kind of treatment at all. The country of Portugal has also taken a similar philosophy on drug policy by providing its citizens with a program that helps get drug addicts back to work by paying up to half their salaries to the companies who hire them, and helping them learn new skills and eventually get business loans with the end game of supporting the economy and helping its people. This has been a massive success considering that drug use in Portugal has literally been cut in half. With all this being said, maybe it's time we reconsider how we view and treat drug addiction in Western society and start showing more understanding and compassion, rather than exiling and stigmatizing our own people simply because they have problems and need help. Currently, the rehabilitation industry in the US focuses on drug replacement therapy, using drugs such as methadone and Suboxone to wean patients off heroin and other opiates. Methadone and Suboxone are actually considered to be synthetic opiates and opioid antagonists, but they work much slower on your brain than a typical opioid would and actually can make you sick if you take them in combination with other drugs such as heroin, codeine, hydrocodone, morphine, and oxycodone. This, in theory, should help ease the severity of opiate withdrawals while preventing the use of stronger opiates until the weaker substance is eventually weaned down to no use at all. The US has outpatient methadone and Suboxone clinics as well as inpatient centers that utilize drug replacement therapy as the main focus of treatment. Although there is some success in the use of these centers, the success rates and benefits are nowhere near those of Switzerland or Portugal, and they present multiple issues as well. The first and most obvious issue is the use of one drug to replace another. This in turn is causing patients to maybe cure one addiction, but as a side effect, they gain another. A perfect example is a heroin addict who is treated with drug replacement therapy. He gets off the heroin, but then becomes addicted to methadone or Suboxone, and once either of those become unavailable, he ends up back on the heroin. It becomes a very vicious cycle very quickly, and I've seen many friends go through this pattern for years until finding a way out, and a few friends who never made it. Another issue is the industry that Western laws and policies have created with the war on drugs, and the pharmaceutical industry creating the need for the rehabilitation industry, as well as incarcerating people who need help rather than actually helping them. It's another vicious cycle that runs rampant to this day and is very costly to our government and taxpayers, and very profitable to the companies involved. I'm not saying that the pharmaceutical industry is a bad thing, because without it, we would have much less availability to common accessible medicines such as aspirin or flu medicine. But, like any other thing in this day and age, it is susceptible to corruption. Corruption such as insurance fraud and making decisions based on profit rather than the greater good. Incentivizing doctors to prescribe drugs that are known to be highly addictive simply because they generate profit. And then turning around and creating and selling drugs that are supposed to help, but really just keep things about the same with a nice, steady profit flow. Even the rehabilitation industry is tainted with things such as insurance fraud. Now I know that there are good people out there who are trying their best to help and fight the good fight, but there are also corrupt ones too. I'm not speaking against anybody in any of these industries who truly believe that they are in it for the greater good. You are the ones who can help change the most. My point is that we need to take a good look at the way things are and do our best to improve it. Now, I want to close things up with the final thought highlighting an experiment done by Dr. Bruce Alexander in the late 70s that is most commonly known as Rat Park. My reason for highlighting this work directly correlates to the treatment of drug addicts in countries such as Switzerland, and it provides new insights on ways to tackle one of the most infamous problems in history. In his experiment, Dr. Alexander challenges earlier experiments done in the 1920s that basically define most of our modern views of addiction. In these experiments, scientists placed a single lab rat in a cage with a bottle of normal untainted water and a bottle of heroin water or cocaine water. The rat would experiment with both bottles at first, but eventually became hooked on the drug water to the point of overdosing itself within about a week. Dr. Alexander points out that the lab rat is alone in a cage and has no kind of stimulation other than the drug water. So from an outside box point of view, it appears to have a troubling life alone in a cage, so naturally, the rat would always choose the drug water. Based on this idea, he created a literal paradise for the lab rat. He made a cage that had everything from toys to mazes and multiple other rats to interact and mate with each other quite freely. He then created the same conditions with a normal water bottle and a bottle of heroin water or cocaine water. The rats initially experimented with both waters, but in this case they very rarely drank the drug water and almost never drank it compulsively with a 0% overdose rate. This, compared to the results of a single rat alone in a cage, was like day versus night, and Dr. Alexander directly correlated the addiction rate of the lab rats with their quality of life. This brings me to a statement by Johann Hari, investigative journalist and author of many books and papers regarding addiction. Johann simply states that the opposite of addiction is connection. So basically, what these people in Switzerland and Portugal are experiencing, that's connection. They are not being exiled or judged. They are being welcomed, accepted, helped, and reconnected. Reconnected with themselves and their communities. That alone, in and of itself, will improve anyone's quality of life by leaps and bounds. Not only that, but they get help to find the root causes and problems of what started their addiction in the first place, and they get built back up to a quality of life that overshadows the addiction and makes them never want to go back. I truly believe that there is something to be learned here, from my own personal experiences to the experiences of some of those around me. I think that we need to stop stigmatizing drug addicts in our country and find new and innovative ways to help them based on all of the positive data coming out of Switzerland and other countries with similar laws and policy. I think we should stop viewing severe addicts as immoral people and start to realize that most immoral behavior stems from the addiction itself and is not necessarily the person, but the need to alleviate addiction symptoms felt by the person by any means necessary. I know, however, that there are actually immoral people out there, but I do not feel that they represent the majority, and we should not punish everyone based on a few. However, weed them out and help everyone we can. It is all about connection after all. This goes for all aspects in life. In my last video, I mentioned how we all need to reconnect with each other and the Mother Earth, and I think there is some perspective in this video that helps support my point. If you or anyone you know are suffering from addiction, then please seek help by whatever means necessary. Be patient, be forgiving, and most important of all, be strong. This is Duality Productions. Thank you for watching. For more thought-provoking videos, please click subscribe, or to show some support, please click like. Thanks again.